My father stood at the head of the rehearsal dinner table, 43 guests watching him, wine glass raised, and said the words that ended something between us permanently. "When I think about who my son has become," he said, "I think about everything I hoped for. A man who works hard, a man who provides, a man who carries this family forward." He looked at my brother. He did not look at me. I was sitting 11 feet away. "I run a company that generates $4.2 million in annual revenue. I have 18 employees. I haven't asked my parents for a single dollar since I was 22 years old. My father didn't know any of that, not because I kept it secret, but because he had never once asked." My brother's fiancée was the one who figured it out. She looked at me across the table during the toast, and I saw something shift in her expression. The slow, quiet recognition of someone realizing they are in the middle of a much stranger story than they thought. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the family that raised me to believe being invisible was the same as being safe. My parents moved from Ohio to Nashville in 1989, the year before I was born. My father took a sales manager position at a medical equipment distributor. He worked his way up over 20 years to regional VP. My mother taught elementary school until my brother was born, then stopped to raise us full-time. We grew up in a 4-bedroom colonial in Brentwood, the kind of neighborhood where every lawn is professionally maintained, and the homeowners association sends passive-aggressive letters about holiday decorations being up past January 15th. My father's philosophy, never stated directly but woven into every decision, was this: sons build. Daughters marry well and support the son who builds. My brother is 3 years younger than me. From the time he was in middle school, my father coached his baseball games, drove him to recruiting camps, called in favors to get him campus tours. When my brother decided, at 19, that he didn't actually want to pursue baseball and wanted to study business instead, my father pivoted without missing a beat. He called contacts. He arranged internships. He co-signed on an apartment in Charlotte when my brother got his first real job at a financial planning firm. When I graduated from Vanderbilt with a degree in computer science and told my parents I was going to work at a tech startup in Austin, my father said, "Is that stable?" My mother said, "Do they have good benefits?" That was the conversation. No co-signed lease. A card on graduation day with $50 in it. A card on. I moved to Austin with $11,000 in savings, a used Civic, and a very clear understanding of what I was to my family. A footnote. The startup I joined was building scheduling software for healthcare providers. I was employee number 7. I learned every system, worked 6 days a week, became the person they called when something broke at 2 a.m. In 2017, the company was acquired for $22 million. I had enough equity to walk away with $140,000 after taxes. I didn't spend it. I enrolled in every course I could find on SaaS product development, spent 8 months building a prototype, and in early 2018 I launched Ovation, a client communication platform for independent medical practices. Small problem. Time to get paid. Big opportunity. Here is where you retain them. That's our pitch, in 2 sentences. Sounds simple. Getting anyone to believe it took 2 years of cold calls, demo after demo, driving to clinics in rental cars, eating airport sandwiches for dinner. By 2020, we had 43 paying clients. By 2022, 311. Last year, we crossed $4 million in ARR with a net revenue retention rate of 118%. I told my parents about the company in January 2019, over the phone, the week after we signed our first 10 clients. "I started my own software company," I said. "We're already generating revenue." My father said, "Software? Then, have you talked to your brother lately? He just got promoted, assistant VP." My mother said, "That's nice, honey. Are you eating enough? You sound thin. You can't sound thin." But I knew what she meant. She meant, "This is not a conversation I know how to have with you." I stopped trying to have it. I built ovation quietly, the way you build anything when nobody's watching, one decision at a time, with no safety net and no audience. I hired my first employee in March 2019. I moved the company from my apartment to a real office, 800 square feet in East Austin, in 2020. I bought my condo in 2021. Cash offer, closed and yes. My parents thought I was renting. Now, the rehearsal dinner. My brother got engaged in October. His fiancée. I'll call her by her name, Odalys, because she deserves to be named, is a corporate attorney at a firm in Charlotte. She is sharp and warm, and has the kind of laugh that makes strangers at the next table smile. I liked her immediately, the one time we met before the wedding weekend, and included my mother asking me, twice, when I was going to settle down somewhere. Ost, I said. Ost, I said. I've been settled there for 6 years. She meant, with a man. With a plan that looked like the plan she understood. The rehearsal dinner was at a private room in a restaurant downtown. Nashville, my parents' city, where my brother had moved back to 6 months earlier for a job at a wealth management firm my father's college roommate partially owns. The restaurant was nice. Dark wood paneling, candlelight, the kind of place where the prix-fixe menu doesn't list prices because if you're asking, you shouldn't be there. I drove up from Austin. 9 hours, overnight, arrived at my parents' house at 6 in the morning. My childhood bedroom had been converted into a craft room. I slept on the pull-out couch in the basement. That detail matters. It tells you everything about the geometry of that house. I showered, changed, arrived at the restaurant at 6:45. There were 43 guests, my parents, my brother and Odalys, her family, colleagues, family friends. I found my place card. I was at a table near the service hallway with cousins I hadn't seen in a decade and a couple from my parents' church I had never met. The head table seated 8. My parents, my brother Odalys, her parents and my father's college roommate and his wife. I was not at the head table. I'm 34 years old. I drove 9 hours. I was seated near the kitchen with people who couldn't quite remember my name. My cousin, I'll call her by name too, Blessing, because she was genuinely kind that night, leaned over early in the evening and said quietly, "You okay?" "Fine," I said. "Families." She nodded in the way people nod when they understand exactly what you mean. Dinner moved slowly. The food was very good. I ate it and answered questions and smiled at the right moments and performed the version of myself that fits into rooms like that one. Smaller, quieter, no sharp edges. At 8:15, my father stood up. He had clearly rehearsed this. He held his wine glass at chest height. He waited for silence the way men who are used to commanding rooms wait for silence, with complete confidence that it will come. "I want to say something about my son," he began. And he did. Talked about my brother's discipline, his ambition, his instinct for relationships. He talked about how proud he was to watch him find his footing. He told a story about a baseball game from 2003 that I have heard no fewer than six times. He talked about the family my brother was building and what it meant to him to see his legacy. That word, legacy, continuing. He did not mention me, not even adjacently. And of course our daughter is here too. Not a glance in my direction. 43 people in that room, and he spoke for 7 minutes, and I was as present as the centerpiece. My mother added a toast of her own. She talked about the family she and my father had always dreamed of building. She talked about watching your children become who you always hoped they'd be. Plural. Children. She said it, used the word, and still managed to say nothing about me at all. I held my wine glass. I did not drink from it. I looked at the centerpiece. From across the table, Odalys was watching me. I noticed because I'm used to not being noticed, so when someone looks at me with actual attention, it registers. She wasn't watching me with pity. She was watching me with something more like calculation, not cold, but focused. Like someone trying to place a face they recognize from somewhere unexpected. After the toasts, the room loosened up. People moved between tables. I stayed where I was and talked to Blessing about her kids. I ordered another glass of wine I didn't drink. Odalys appeared at my shoulder around 9. "Can I steal you for a second?" she said. We moved to a quieter spot near the window, away from the main noise of the room. She looked at me directly. "That toast was something," she said. "It's fine," I said. "Automatic, you've been saying that all night." She wasn't accusatory, just observant. "I've been watching you say it." I looked at her. My brother had chosen well. I could see that clearly. "What do you do?" she asked. "I realize I don't actually know. Your brother always just says you're in tech." "I'm in tech," I said. "That's not what I asked." There was a pause. I looked out the window at the street. Nashville on a Friday night, people moving in groups, music coming from somewhere 2 blocks over. "I run a software company," I said. "We build client communication tools for independent medical practices. We're based in Austin." Odalys nodded slowly. How long?" "6 years. How big?" I looked at her. She was asking the real question nobody in my family had ever asked. I felt something strange, not quite the urge to cry, more like the feeling you get when you've been holding a heavy bag for a long time, and someone finally offers to take it. "About 4 million in annual recurring revenue," I said. 18 employees. We've been growing about 40% year over year. Her expression didn't change immediately. She was processing. I watched her do it. "Wait," she said. She said it very quietly. "What's the company called?" "Ovation," I said. She pulled out her phone. She was not subtle about it, and she didn't apologize for not being subtle. She typed something, waited, looked at the screen, looked at me, looked at the screen again. "This is you," she said. It wasn't a question. She turned the phone so I could see. The Ovation homepage. My photo in the leadership section. Founder and CEO. "Yes," I said. "Your parents know about this." It wasn't a question either. She was thinking out loud, reassembling something. "I told them when I started," I said. "I told them when we hit our first 100 clients. I mentioned it at Thanksgiving 2 years ago when we closed our Series A. I sent my father an article that ran in Austin Business Journal." Odalys looked at me for a long moment. "He's never mentioned this company," she said. "Not once. In 2 years of being with your brother, your father has never said your company's name." "I know," I said. She turned and looked across the room at my father, who was laughing with his college roommate, absolutely at ease, completely comfortable. Then she looked at my brother. My brother was watching us. He must have seen her pull out her phone. He must have seen something in her posture that made him cross the room, because he was there in less than a minute, wine glass in hand, with the easy smile of someone who doesn't yet know what's about to change. "What are you two talking about?" he asked. Odalys held up her phone, the Ovation website, my photo, my title. "Did you know about this?" she asked him. My brother looked at the screen. His smile didn't disappear, but it changed, shifted into something more uncertain. "She does software stuff," he said. "She mentioned it." Odalys put the phone down. Her voice stayed level. "Your sister runs a company with 18 employees and $4 million in revenue, and you described it as software stuff." I watched my brother's face in real time. The sequence was confusion, then recognition, then something that looked very much like shame. I had never seen that expression on him before. He is 3 years younger than me and had spent his entire life being the one my parents watched with pride. He had never had reason to look ashamed of anything. I didn't know it was. I didn't realize. "Did you ask?" Odalys said. He didn't answer. My father's college roommate had drifted closer. He was a man named, I'll give him a name, Pierce, because that's the kind of name he has. A man who runs a significant stake in 3 regional firms and who has known my father for 40 years. He had clearly caught part of the conversation because he was looking at the phone in Odalys's hand with open curiosity. "Is that Ovation?" he said. I looked at him. "The scheduling and communication platform? My daughter's practice uses it. 3 locations switched over about 8 months ago." He turned to me. "Are you founder?" I said. Pierce looked at my father. My father had turned from his conversation, drawn by some shift in the room's atmosphere. He was looking at us across 12 feet of candlelit space. Pierce said, "Doug, did you know your daughter built Ovation?" My father crossed to us. He was already composing his face into something confused, defensive, the expression of a man who is about to say he knew all along or claim some version of credit. "She's in tech," my father said. "She's always been in tech. She built Ovation," Pierce said again, like my father hadn't understood the first time. My father took the phone. He looked at the screen. He looked at me. He looked back at the screen. I watched him read my bio. I watched him read the company description. I watched him scroll to the press page where there are 11 articles, including the Austin Business Journal piece I sent him 2 years ago that he was responded to with a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. "I didn't know it was this big," he said. "Didn't know or didn't ask," I said. The room had shifted. Not dramatically, this wasn't a scene in a movie. Nobody stopped talking. The music didn't cut out. But the 4 or 5 people closest to us had gone quiet. My mother had appeared from somewhere and was standing at the edge of the group, and her face had the look of a woman who can feel the social ground changing under her and is calculating very quickly how to respond. "You never told us the details," my father said. "I tried," I said. "Multiple times." "You mentioned it. I sent you an article. You sent a thumbs up. I told you at Thanksgiving we had closed a funding round. You asked me to pass the cranberry sauce." My mother made a sound, not a word, just a sound, the beginning of a deflection. "We always supported." "What did you support?" I kept my voice quiet. I had no interest in performing this for the Rumachim. I was just tired of the lie. "What exactly did you support?" Nobody answered. Pierce looked at my father with an expression I couldn't fully read, something between sympathy and discomfort. He excused himself quietly. My father said, "We could have helped." "If we'd known." "I didn't need help," I said. "I needed someone to ask."
There's a difference.
My mother reached for my arm. "Let's not do this tonight. This is your brother's night." I looked at her hand on my arm. I looked at my brother, who was standing very still. I looked at Odalis, who was watching me with an expression that said, "You don't have to perform anything right now." "You're right," I said to my mother. I stepped back. "I'm not going to do this tonight." I picked up my bag from the table near the window. I said congratulations to my brother, and I meant it. I told Odalis it was genuinely good to talk to her. I meant that too. I drove back to my parents' house. Slept on the pull-out couch in the basement. Left at 5:45 in the morning before anyone else was awake. I was in Texas by 3 in the afternoon. The week after the rehearsal dinner, my phone had 17 unread messages by the time I got home to Austin. My brother had called twice. My father sent a text. "We should talk. What you said last night was unfair." My mother left a voicemail that I could tell she'd rehearsed, something about how families communicate differently, and she hoped I wasn't building up resentments that would damage our relationships long term. I sat with all of it for 4 days. Then I responded to my brother, "I'd like to talk. When you're back from the honeymoon, let me know." To my father, "I agree we should talk, but I want to be honest. The conversation I want to have is about a pattern, not about last night specifically. If you're open to that, I'm open to the call." He didn't respond for 6 days. When he did, he said, "Your mother and I have always been proud of you." It was 8 words. No acknowledgement of the pattern, no acknowledgement of the article, no acknowledgement of the thumbs up emoji at Thanksgiving. I wrote back 3 sentences. "I believe you feel that. I also believe pride looks like attention. I'll wait to hear from you when you're ready to talk about what that means." I didn't hear back. The wedding was in April. It was beautiful. Outdoor ceremony, early spring, the kind of Nashville afternoon that feels like the city remembered it could be kind. I sat with Blessing and her husband. I watched my brother say his vows, and I watched Odalis watch him say them, and I thought, she is going to push him. She is not going to let him stay comfortable. He got lucky. My father gave a speech at the reception. It was gracious and warm, and this time he mentioned me. My daughter drove up from Austin, he said. She's built something remarkable in Texas. He said it in the same tone someone uses to describe a good restaurant they've been to. Informational. Slightly proud in a distant way, like the achievement was happening to someone he sort of knew. It was something. It wasn't enough. I had stopped waiting for it as enough. Odalis found me during the cocktail hour. She was holding a glass of champagne and her heels were already off, which I respected. "How are you doing?" she asked. I told her the truth. "Better than I expected." "Pierce reached out to me," she said. "Apparently he mentioned you to some people. You might be getting a call from a firm in Nashville." I looked at her. She shrugged. "I didn't do anything. I just didn't correct him when he started telling people about Ovation." I laughed. It came out genuine, which surprised me. We talked for 20 minutes about the legal landscape for health tech, about her firm's work on HIPAA compliance issues, about a contract structure problem I'd been sitting on for 3 weeks. It was the best conversation I had all weekend. In June, 3 months after the wedding, I took a call from a regional health system in Tennessee looking for a patient communication solution for their network of independent affiliated practices. 47 practices total. Pierce had mentioned my name to someone who mentioned it to someone. The call lasted 90 minutes. We sent a proposal the following week. It was the largest single opportunity in Ovation's history. In July, my brother took me to lunch. Just the two of us, a diner in the neighborhood where we grew up. He ordered coffee and a grilled cheese, and he looked like he hadn't been sleeping well, which I took as a good sign. "People who are sitting with real things don't sleep easily," he said. "I've been thinking a lot about that night." I waited. "I didn't know what Ovation was," he said. "That's true, but the reason I didn't know is because I never asked. And the reason I never asked is..." He stopped. Started again. "I think I was doing this thing where I didn't want to know, because if I knew, I'd have to think about what it meant. That you were building something that big and nobody was watching." He looked at his coffee cup. "That's a hard thing to sit with," he said. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry I wasn't watching." I looked at my brother, my little brother, who grew up being handed everything and took it without asking why it was handed to him, who is genuinely trying now, who married someone who will not let him stop trying. "Thank you," I said. "That actually means something. We didn't fix everything over grilled cheese in a Nashville diner. That's not how it works." But he asked me, before we left, to tell him about Ovation. The real version, what I'd built, how I'd built it, what the next year looked like. He asked specific questions. He'd listen to the answers. It was the first real conversation we'd ever had. I drove back to the airport with the windows down, Nashville August heat pouring through the car, and I thought about the 9 hours I'd driven to sit near the kitchen while my father talked about legacy. I thought about the thumbs up emoji. I thought about Odalis saying, "Did you ask?" and my brother having no answer. Here's what I've learned about building something when no one is watching. The building's the same. The foundation is the same. The work is the same. What changes is you. You stop building for an audience that was never going to show up anyway, and you start building because the work itself is worth doing. My parents have not asked about Ovation since April. My father sent a birthday card in September with a check for $100, which I think is the amount he's been giving me since I was in college, and he never updated it. My mother calls on Sundays and we talk for 12 minutes about nothing in particular. It is what it is. Pierce's introduction led to a signed contract in October, 47 practices. It changed what our next 12 months look like in ways I'm still absorbing. I didn't tell my parents, not out of spite. I thought about it. I genuinely sat with whether I wanted to share it with them. And what I realized is, I don't need them to see it to know it's real. I built that thing on my own, with my own hands, with people I hired and trained and trusted. The contract is real whether my father knows about it or not. That's not coldness. That's just what it means to finally understand the difference between wanting to be seen and needing to be. I still drive 9 hours sometimes. I still sleep on the pull-out couch. I still watch my father hold court at the head of the table and say nothing about me, or say something adjacent to nothing. But I drive home knowing what I came from and what I built despite it. And, lately, that's been enough.